If you're a man over 60 and you've been told it's normal to wake up 3 or 4 times a night just to pee, I'm here to tell you, that's a lie. It's not normal, and it's definitely not harmless. And the real reason it's happening might surprise you, because there's one simple daily habit, something you do without even thinking, that's quietly inflaming your prostate, interrupting your sleep, and slowly eroding your quality of life. And yet, no one warns you. Not your friends, not your family, and sadly not even your doctor. I'm Dr. Mohit Kara, a physician and men's health specialist with over 30 years of experience helping men overcome prostate problems, erectile dysfunction, low testosterone, and other challenges that affect vitality and confidence. I've helped thousands of men in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s reclaim their strength, energy, and independence. And today, I want to help you do the same. Most men believe their prostate gets bigger simply because they're getting older. But that's only half the truth. What if I told you your age isn't the main problem? That there's one overlooked daily behavior triggering silent inflammation, the real cause behind urgency, dribbling, and those frustrating late-night bathroom trips? Stay with me. In the next few minutes, I'll reveal what that habit is, why it's so dangerous, and how to stop it naturally, without medication or surgery. I'll also share a simple 15-second bedtime ritual my patients use to sleep through the night and wake up feeling like themselves again. Before we start, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another men's health tip. And if this message resonates with you, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 so I know how to better serve you. Habit number 10. Cutting back on water to avoid. Nighttime urination. I can't tell you how many times I've had men proudly tell me they've stopped drinking water in the evening, thinking it'll help them sleep through the night without bathroom trips. And every time, I shake my head gently and say, I know you mean well, but that habit might actually be making your symptoms worse. It sounds logical. Less water, less urine, fewer bathroom trips. But here's what no one tells you. When you drink too little water, especially later in the day, your urine becomes more concentrated, darker, more acidic, and more irritating to the bladder. That irritation creates pressure. That pressure pushes against your already sensitive prostate. And the result? You actually feel the urge to urinate more often, not less. When your bladder is constantly exposed to concentrated urine, it becomes inflamed and overactive. It starts sending premature signals to empty, even when it's only half full. That's why so many men find themselves waking up at 1 a.m., then 3 a.m., then 5 a.m., only to pass a small trickle each time. It's frustrating. It's exhausting. And it slowly wears you down. I've had patients nearly in tears telling me they just want one full night of sleep again. I understand. I really do. But the answer isn't to deprive your body of water. In fact, dehydration is one of the most overlooked causes of prostate inflammation. Without enough hydration, your body can't flush out toxins. Your tissues swell, and healing slows to a crawl. So what should you do instead? It's simple. Hydrate consistently throughout the day. Don't wait until you're thirsty. That means you're already behind. Sip small amounts of water regularly from morning until early evening. Aim for light, clear urine. That's your body's way of saying, we're in balance. And if you're worried about nighttime trips, just taper off water about 90 minutes before bed. But don't stop completely. Water isn't the enemy. It's your ally, your body's most natural, powerful tool to calm the bladder, reduce prostate pressure, and help you sleep peacefully through the night. Now you might be wondering, if cutting back on water makes things worse, what about sitting for long periods of time? Could those quiet afternoons on the recliner actually be fueling your prostate problems too? Let's take a closer look. Habit number 9. Sitting for long periods without movement. I remember one of my patients, Frank, a retired school principal. He told me he spent most of his day sitting, watching TV, reading the paper, or working on puzzles at the kitchen table. "Doc," he said with a smile, "I've earned this rest." And he had. But what Frank didn't realize, what most men don't realize, is that too much sitting quietly works against your prostate health. Here's what happens. When you sit for long periods, especially without standing or stretching, you place constant low-level pressure on your pelvic region. That pressure reduces blood flow to the prostate. And when circulation slows, inflammation builds. The body can't deliver nutrients as efficiently. It can't carry waste away. The tissues around your prostate swell, and soon you start noticing more urgency, a weaker stream, or discomfort when sitting. It doesn't happen overnight, and that's what makes it so dangerous. It creeps in slowly. A few bathroom trips here, a restless night there, a growing feeling that something just isn't right. I've seen it so many times, men who feel trapped in their chairs, and then become trapped in a cycle of worsening symptoms. The truth is, our bodies were designed to move. Movement isn't just about exercise or fitness. It's about circulation and energy. And for men over 60, it's one of the most powerful ways to protect your prostate. The good news? You don't need a gym. One simple rule can change everything. Every 30 minutes, stand up, that's it. Just stand, stretch your arms, take a few steps. Look out the window. Set a gentle reminder if you need to. These tiny movements release pressure, restore blood flow, and remind your body that it's still active, still strong, still alive. Frank took that advice seriously. He set a timer and started moving every half hour. Within 2 weeks, he was sleeping better and smiling again. Within a month, Frank told me he felt lighter, more energized, and more in control. So if you're spending long hours sitting, whether watching sports, reading, or just relaxing, remember this: a still body invites silent problems. A moving body invites healing. And speaking of hidden troublemakers, there's another one that sneaks into the routine of almost every man I meet: your morning coffee. Could that innocent cup be irritating your prostate more than you think? Let's dive in. Habit number 8, overconsumption of caffeine. I'll be honest, this one hits close to home. I love the smell of fresh coffee in the morning. That first warm sip can feel like a small gift. And for many men I see, especially those who are retired and finally enjoying slow, peaceful mornings, that daily cup of coffee becomes almost sacred. But here's what I've learned after decades of treating prostate problems. Too much caffeine, even from something as comforting as coffee or tea, can quietly wreak havoc on your bladder and prostate. Caffeine is a stimulant. It doesn't just wake up your mind. It wakes up your entire urinary system. It increases urine production and stimulates bladder muscles, often leading to more frequent urges to go. For a younger man, that might be nothing more than a minor inconvenience. But for someone over 60, whose prostate may already be slightly enlarged, that extra stimulation can push things over the edge. You might find yourself rushing to the bathroom more often, especially in the late morning or afternoon. Or you may feel like you're never quite emptying your bladder fully. That lingering pressure, the urgency, the occasional dribble, they might all be tied to how much caffeine you're consuming. One of my patients, Gary, had a routine: coffee in the morning, iced tea in the afternoon, and sometimes a cola at night. He never thought twice about it. When I suggested cutting back, keeping just one morning cup and switching to herbal or decaf options later in the day, he hesitated. "Doc," he said, "I've been drinking this stuff for years." I smiled and told him that may be exactly why it's time to change. Within 10 days, Gary noticed something remarkable. He wasn't waking up as much at night. His urine stream felt stronger. His confidence returned. And to his surprise, he didn't miss caffeine as much as he thought he would. Now, I'm not saying you have to give it up completely. I wouldn't ask that of you. But moderation matters. Enjoy that one morning cup, savor it, then stop there. Your prostate and your sleep will thank you. And while we're on the subject of what we put into our bodies, there's another culprit far more disruptive to your hormones and prostate than caffeine. And chances are, it's sitting on your plate more often than you realize. Let's talk about that next. Habit number 7. Eating processed and spicy foods regularly. I had a patient named Bill, 68 years old, who came to me frustrated. "Doc," he said, "I've cut back on soda. I'm walking more, but I'm still waking up at night to pee, and it's driving me crazy." I asked him to describe his daily meals. He paused, then laughed. "Well, breakfast is bacon and eggs. Lunch is usually a sandwich with deli meat, and I can't give up my spicy chili at dinner." That's when the real conversation began. Most men don't realize this. Food isn't just fuel. It's information. Every bite you take sends a message to your body, and highly processed foods like bacon, sausages, frozen meals, and packaged snacks are sending the wrong message to your prostate. These foods are full of chemicals, unhealthy fats, and preservatives that trigger inflammation throughout the body. When your prostate is already sensitive, that inflammation only makes things worse. And it's not just processed foods. Spicy dishes, hot peppers, chili powders, sauces can directly irritate the bladder and pelvic nerves. When those nerves become overstimulated, it can feel like your bladder's full, even when it's not. You might notice yourself going more often, with less control and more discomfort. But the real issue runs deeper. Many processed meals contain trans fats and added sugars that lower testosterone and raise estrogen levels, a hormonal imbalance known to fuel prostate growth. So even if it's not obvious, what's on your plate could be silently making your symptoms worse day after day. When Bill swapped his usual meals for simple, whole foods, grilled chicken, leafy greens, avocado, berries, and a handful of walnuts, he was amazed. He didn't just feel better physically. He told me, "Doc, I feel more like myself again, clearer, stronger, more in control." That's the power of eating to heal instead of eating out of habit. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be mindful. Start small. Cook more at home. Add one anti-inflammatory food per day. Over time, your body will respond, your prostate will calm, and your sleep will finally become more peaceful. But even with a perfect diet, there's one daily behavior men overlook all the time. Something that seems harmless but acts like a slow-motion earthquake for your prostate. Let's uncover that next. Habit number 6, holding. Your urine for too long. It always surprises me how many men brush this off like it's no big deal. I was stuck in traffic. The game was on. I figured I could wait until the next rest stop. I get it. Life happens, but as someone who spent more than 30 years treating men's health, I can tell you this seemingly small habit is one of the most underestimated causes of prostate problems I see. Here's what's really happening. Every time you resist the urge to go, your bladder stretches beyond its normal limit. It's like blowing up a balloon just a little too much, over and over again. That constant stretching creates downward pressure directly onto your prostate. And your prostate, especially after 60, isn't built to handle that kind of repeated stress. Over time, that pressure irritates delicate tissues, causes swelling, and can even damage the nerves and muscles that control urination. That's why men who frequently hold it often develop a weak stream, that incomplete emptying feeling, or the need to go more often later on. It's your body's way of sounding the alarm, telling you something isn't right, and there's more. When you delay urination too often, your bladder doesn't fully empty. The leftover urine becomes stagnant, increasing irritation and risk of infection. When you hold your urine too long, the bladder often doesn't empty completely. What's left behind, small amounts of stagnant urine, becomes a breeding ground for bacteria. That leads to infections, which only further inflame the prostate and irritate the bladder. I remember one gentleman named Tom, a retired firefighter. He told me he'd trained himself for years to ignore the urge to go during long emergency shifts. It was a badge of discipline, he said. But now, at 67, he was waking up 5 times a night, constantly uncomfortable, exhausted and frustrated. When I explained the connection, he paused, looked down, and said softly, "I wish someone had told me this sooner." So here's what I tell every man now. When your body says go, go. Don't wait. Don't hold it. Your bladder and prostate are a team. When one suffers, the other does too. Listening to your body isn't weakness. It's wisdom. And while we're on the topic of daily damage, there's one habit even more destructive than holding your urine. It affects your lungs, your blood, and your prostate all at once. And even if you don't smoke yourself, just being around it could still be putting your health at risk. Habit number 5. Smoking, or even being around smoke. I'll never forget a man named Walter who came to see me a few years ago. He was 72, strong-willed, sharp-minded, and proud of the life he'd built in construction. He looked me in the eye and said, "Doc, I quit smoking 10 years ago, but my prostate's still giving me hell." When I asked if he was ever around other smokers, he paused, then nodded. Every Friday night poker game, my buddies light up like it's 1975. What Walter didn't realize was that the prostate is incredibly sensitive to environmental toxins. And cigarette smoke, whether you inhale it directly or secondhand, is one of the most damaging exposures your body can face. Each cigarette releases thousands of chemicals. Many restrict blood flow, reduce oxygen levels, and trigger chronic inflammation throughout the body, including the prostate. Over time, those chemicals interfere with your gland's ability to heal and regenerate. Blood vessels feeding the prostate begin to narrow, tissues stiffen. Immune cells rush in not to repair, but to contain the constant chemical assault. The result is a state of low-grade inflammation that quietly chips away at your health. And here's the hard truth. If you're over 60, your body's ability to detoxify naturally has already slowed. That means even occasional smoke exposure can set your prostate health back significantly. Even worse, long-term exposure to cigarette smoke doesn't just worsen benign enlargement. It can also raise your risk for prostate cancer. This isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up. Because it's never too late to change course. If you smoke, please hear this with compassion. Quitting is hard, but it's also the single greatest gift you can give your prostate, your heart, and your future. There's help out there. Medications, support groups, behavioral therapy. And if you've already quit, be proud, but stay alert. Avoid secondhand smoke whenever you can. Your health is still worth protecting. Walter took that advice seriously. He stopped attending his weekly poker nights and started hosting them at his own home, smoke-free. Within weeks, his sleep improved. His nighttime urgency eased. His energy returned. He told me it felt like someone had finally turned down the volume on his discomfort. But you might be surprised to learn that one of the most dangerous habits of all isn't about what you breathe. It's about what you ignore. Too many men treat their bodies worse than their cars, and that's where we're headed next. Habit number 4, skipping yearly prostate checkups. Not long ago, I sat across from a man named Henry, 66 years old, well-dressed, polite, and clearly uncomfortable. He'd been dealing with frequent urination, low energy, and a dull ache in his lower abdomen for over a year. But this was his first visit to a urologist. When I asked why he'd waited so long, he shrugged and said, "I didn't want to know. Henry isn't alone. A lot of men, strong, intelligent, hard-working men, avoid the doctor until they can't ignore the problem anymore. And I get it. There's fear, pride, sometimes embarrassment. But here's what I always say. You take your car in for an oil change regularly, not because it's broken, but to keep it from breaking. So why should your body deserve any less care? The prostate is a tricky organ. When it starts to swell or act up, it often does so quietly. No pain, no obvious warning lights, just subtle changes. A weaker stream, an extra trip to the bathroom, a restless night. By the time symptoms become obvious, the issue may already be advanced. But when caught early, most prostate problems, even early-stage cancer, can be managed with simple lifestyle changes and non-invasive treatments. That's why annual checkups are so important. A quick physical exam, a PSA blood test, and sometimes a digital rectal exam. These simple tools can provide life-saving information. They're not about diagnosing disease. They're about preserving health, giving you the chance to stay ahead of problems instead of chasing them later. I told Henry exactly that. We ran a few simple tests, and thankfully we caught his issue early. With a few dietary changes, stress management, and mild medication, he turned things around in just a few months. But I'll never forget what he said afterward. "Doc, I wish I hadn't waited. I could have saved myself a year of worry. So let me ask you, when was the last time you had your prostate checked? Not because something felt wrong, but because you wanted to stay well. If it's been more than a year, make that appointment. Your future self will thank you. And while getting checked is essential, what you eat every day plays just as big a role. Because the next habit involves a food that most of us grew up loving, yet it may be quietly fueling prostate problems, meal after meal. Let's talk about that next. Habit number 3, eating too much red and processed. Meat. I once treated a man named Joe, 70 years old, retired Navy, proud Texan. He came to see me after months of interrupted sleep, a sluggish urine stream, and growing discomfort in his lower pelvis. When we went over his diet, he chuckled and said, "Doc, I'm a steak guy, always have been. Nothing beats a good ribeye." I smiled, because I hear that a lot. And believe me, I understand. There's something deeply satisfying about a perfectly grilled steak. Habit number 3, eating too much red and processed meat. Let's be honest, there's something deeply satisfying about a hearty, meat-centered meal. For many men, it's not just food, it's tradition, comfort, even a reward after a long day. But here's the truth most men never hear. A diet rich in red and processed meats, things like bacon, sausages, deli cuts, and thick steaks, can quietly fuel the inflammation that worsens prostate problems. These meats are often loaded with saturated fats, preservatives, and chemicals that promote low-grade inflammation throughout the body. And when your prostate is already enlarged or sensitive, that inflammation acts like gasoline on a fire. It adds to swelling, hormonal imbalance, and urinary issues, especially as digestion and metabolism naturally slow with age. Even more concerning, long-term studies have linked high consumption of red and processed meats to a greater risk of prostate cancer. But here's the hopeful part. This is one risk you can control. The food you eat every day can either fight inflammation or feed it. When I asked one of my patients, Joe, a proud 70-year-old Navy veteran, to cut back his red meat to once or twice a week and try leaner proteins like chicken, fish, beans, or lentils, he wasn't thrilled at first. But after a few weeks, he came back smiling and said, "Doc, I didn't realize how heavy I'd been feeling until I stopped. My stomach's calmer, I'm sleeping better, and I don't miss the meat like I thought I would. You don't have to give it up entirely. Just bring more balance to your plate. Focus on foods that come from the earth, not a factory. Your prostate will thank you sooner than you think." Habit number 2, belly fat and obesity. One of my patients, Leonard, 64, came into my office one day with a sheepish grin and said, "Doc, I know I've gained some weight around the middle, but how much harm can a belly really do?" I looked him in the eye and said gently, "More than you think, Leonard, especially to your prostate. Excess belly fat isn't just harmless weight. It's an active tissue that releases hormones and inflammatory chemicals that work against you. This kind of fat converts valuable testosterone into estrogen, and that hormonal shift directly contributes to prostate growth. As testosterone falls and estrogen rises, the prostate enlarges, leading to frequent urination, weak flow, and that constant feeling of pressure. But it doesn't stop there. Belly fat also increases inflammation, strains your heart, disrupts blood sugar, and reduces blood flow, all of which affect vitality and sexual health. So, while it might seem like just a cosmetic issue, that growing waistline could be signaling a much deeper imbalance. The good news? You don't need to lose 30 or 40 pounds to feel better. Studies show even a modest 5% reduction in body weight can significantly improve prostate symptoms. For Leonard, it started small, a short morning walk, swapping sugary drinks for water, and adding an extra serving of vegetables to dinner. Within weeks, he noticed he wasn't waking up as often at night. He felt lighter, more energetic, more like himself. Your waistline tells a story, and when you take steps to reclaim it, you're not just losing inches. You're regaining balance where it matters most. Habit number 1, chronic. Uncontrolled stress of all the habits we've discussed. Diet, exercise, daily choices. This last one might be the most powerful and the most overlooked. Stress. I've had patients sit across from me, calm on the outside but carrying decades of tension on the inside. One man, Richard, told me, "Doc, I'm not the kind of guy who talks about stress. I just keep moving." And I nodded, because I've heard that story too many times. Men, especially those over 60, were taught to tough it out, to be the rock for everyone else. But chronic stress doesn't just live in your head, it lives in your body. Your prostate feels it. When stress lingers, your body produces too much cortisol, the stress hormone. Elevated cortisol fuels inflammation, tightens the pelvic muscles, disrupts hormones, interferes with sleep, and gradually lowers testosterone. The result? More pain, more pressure, more prostate discomfort. You may catch yourself clenching your abdomen, sleeping poorly, feeling more irritable or drained. Those are all signs that stress is quietly wearing you down. When Richard finally opened up about the pressure he felt, worries about family, finances, and finding purpose in retirement, we worked on rebuilding from the inside out. No medications, just small steps, 10 minutes of deep breathing, morning walks, journaling once a week, reconnecting with friends, and most importantly, giving himself permission to rest. Within weeks, he slept better, his urinary urgency eased, and his energy returned. He told me, "I didn't realize how much I was holding in until I let it go." Managing stress isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's leadership over your own health. And it might just be the foundation that makes every other habit easier to change. Now that we've uncovered all 10 hidden habits that silently fuel prostate enlargement and discomfort, don't let it overwhelm you. Because in the final part of this journey, I'll share something simple, a nightly ritual that takes just 15 seconds. yet has transformed the lives of so many of my patients. Let's wrap this up together. Conclusion: you are not broken. You're just uninformed over the years. I've sat across from hundreds of men just like you, frustrated, exhausted, and quietly worried about what's happening to their bodies. Some feel embarrassed, some feel angry, most feel alone. But after hearing their stories, I can tell you this with absolute certainty. You are not broken. You are not weak. You've simply been living without the full picture. And now that you have it, everything can change. We've uncovered the 10 everyday habits that slowly inflame the prostate. Drinking too little water, sitting too long, too much caffeine, processed and spicy foods ignoring nature's call, exposure to smoke, skipping checkups, eating too much red meat, carrying extra belly fat, and living under constant stress. On their own, each one might seem harmless, but stacked together, day after day, they quietly build the perfect storm, swelling your prostate, robbing you of rest, and chipping away at your confidence and control. Here's the truth: you have the power to turn it around. It doesn't take radical change or expensive treatments. It takes awareness. It takes small, intentional steps, repeated with consistency. It takes listening to your body instead of pushing through the signals it's sending. And most of all, it takes treating yourself with the same care and urgency you'd offer to someone you love. Most men wait until things get bad, until they're up 5 times a night, until intimacy fades, until the prescriptions start piling up. But what if you didn't wait? What if, starting tonight, you gave your body the support it's been quietly asking for? One of the simplest and most effective tools I share with my patients is something I call the 15-second bedtime ritual. It's easy, completely safe, and built on the same principles we've discussed today: reducing internal pressure, calming the nervous system, and supporting your prostate and bladder while you sleep. Men who do it consistently tell me they wake up less often, sleep more deeply, and finally feel back in control of their nights and their lives. So here's my challenge to you. Go back through the habits we talked about and choose just one to start with. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for progress. You're not too old. It's not too late. Your prostate is listening, and now you have the knowledge to help it heal. If you've made it this far, that tells me one thing: you're ready. Ready to take ownership of your health, ready to feel stronger, clearer, and more alive than you have in years. If this message helped you even a little, please take a moment to like this video. It helps more men find the guidance they've been searching for. Share it with a friend, a brother, or anyone who might be struggling in silence. And I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me which habit spoke to you the most. Your voice matters, your health matters, and your best years are still ahead. Thank you for being here and for taking this step toward reclaiming your strength, your sleep, and your peace of mind.